Welcome to the Vitals podcast delivered by Georgia Life Sciences in partnership with Cloudcast Media. We're so excited to have today's conversation. This podcast is the pulse of Georgia's life sciences sector, and we have an important piece of this ecosystem with us today. Lynn, President and CEO of Georgia Core, so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, no, happy to. Georgia Core does so much important work in the oncology space. I think it's really important for our community to learn about you and the work that you all do. So let's start with you, though. Okay. You've had such a rich career spanning policy, advocacy, academia, and of course, healthcare leadership. Can you share a bit more about your journey and what brought you to Georgia Core?
Sure, absolutely. So I came to Georgia back in 1995. I can't believe how long it's been, and I was with Georgia Tech at the time. My background is government and politics, and so I worked in the State Relations Office at the time it was called, and so have worked in and around the legislature for over 30 years, and then went further at Georgia Tech and became the president's chief of staff. And so I was Bud Peterson's chief of staff for 10 years and really loved that role and what I could do, because you had the broad knowledge of Georgia Tech, which is enormous and has so many different facets to it, including research and education and so many points. But I really felt like I was being called to something else, and so I never imagined I would lead a nonprofit. However, I am a 3-time cancer survivor, and so I've had thyroid, breast, and chronic myeloid leukemia.
Oh my.
And so I was actually on a survivorship advisory board for Georgia Core for a few years, and they asked me to serve on their board of directors. And then when the president decided to retire, they asked if I would be interested, and I said, of course not. I just got my doctorate in education. I'm going to do higher ed, but really felt called to this work, and so grateful I do it, and have absolutely loved being out there and getting around our state and talking to people about improving cancer care.
That's amazing. And how long have you been at Georgia Core? 2 years?
4.5 years.
It's been 4.5 years since Nancy retired. Oh my goodness.
I
had no idea. Oh, time flies, man.
It does.
Well, that's amazing, and I'm so glad that you've gotten the care and treatments you needed to still be here with us. So
yes, I always say, if it weren't for clinical trials, I wouldn't be here, because people and researchers and doctors took chances years and years ago to come up with the incredible medications and technologies that have allowed me to live a very normal life, believe it or not. And so it really is amazing. That's great.
We all have our why as to why we're in this industry. That's truly important. And but okay, so pivoting a bit more to Georgia Core.
Sure.
What is it? What does the CORE stand for is one thing.
What is it? Yes. CORE stands for the Center for Oncology Research and Education. And so it was founded in 2003 by Governor Roy Barnes, actually, really trying to make sure that Georgians had access to cancer care. He was very concerned that Georgians were having to go to MD Anderson or Dana-Farber or somewhere else for clinical trials and advanced cancer treatment. And he wanted Georgians to be able to live at home, work at home, do what they needed to do. And so that's what we were founded to do, was to really bring more clinical trials to Georgia. We have expanded greatly what we do, we don't work directly with patients. We're not patient-facing. We work with doctors and hospitals and healthcare systems to improve everything from screening and prevention to clinical trials to navigation and all different aspects of cancer. So we say that our mission is to reduce the burden of cancer through research, education, and advocacy. Those are our lanes, and that's what we do. That's amazing.
So then how do you do that? How do you connect the researchers, the providers, the patients? Because it sounds like everything you're based in is all about access.
Yeah, it is.
But not being patient-facing, it's a little different. So how do you do that and help advance cancer care and outcomes here in Georgia?
Absolutely. We have an incredibly strong board. We have 20 members of our board that mostly oncologists, not all, but they all touch cancer in some way. And it's really about making sure that they come to the table not representing their healthcare system, but representing what is best for Georgians and trying to make sure that the work that we're doing at Georgia Core is benefiting Georgians. And so we say we are a convener, we are an educator, we're a funder, we're a partner. We're really trying to bring people in the cancer care community across Georgia to the table to have the conversations on what we can do to make it better. And so that is a lot of what we do. But we work with, one day we're working with Northside, the next day we're working with Emory, the next day we're working with Valdosta, folks down at Pearlman and Valdosta. And so we're trying to bring all those pieces together to make sure the conversations are inclusive and rich, and that we're getting the information we need to understand what are the barriers in Southwest Georgia, what are the barriers in Southeast Georgia. It's not all the same.
No, it's a big state.
It's a big state with different needs and really different
cultures,
levels of trust in the healthcare system. And so really trying to figure that out and do what's best for the state.
No, it's so true. It's just not one copy and paste with your social media campaign or
Not
anything
at
like that,
all.
or your recruitment campaign for a patient trial.
Right.
Wow. So patient-centered impact, that's really what you're focused on. So Georgia Core places patients at the center of its mission, which is amazing.
Yep.
How do you ensure the patient voice, since you're not patient-facing, and their needs are truly integrated into research and care delivery?
Yep. Well, we work with, we do have several advisory boards where we recruit survivors and other patients to come and be part of those so we can hear their voice in whatever we're doing. We also have survivors and former patients on our board, and so that helps as well. But what we really try to do is work with our university partners, with our physician partners, our med school partners, other nonprofits around the states. There are 5 regional cancer coalitions in Georgia that we always say they're the boots on the ground. They're the ones working with the patients. And so we work with them to learn from what they do, to make sure that what we're doing is going to resonate, is going to be something that's helpful. As we're working, I work a lot with the legislature. Advocacy is part of what we do. And I want to make sure they're aware that we're not just coming up with ideas out of nowhere, that we're really listening to Georgians and understanding what the challenges are. We work with so many doctors who really feel it's very important for them to come to us and say, hey, I had this story about this patient. This is what's going on. And really tell that. I do want to tell one quick story because it's so impactful. A friend of mine, I was up lobbying at Congress with her for colorectal cancer research. She was diagnosed at age 36 with early onset colorectal cancer. And she just died last week.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And she leaves behind 4 children, incredible children, and husband and parents. And, those are the people that, I have chills as I say this. That's what makes the difference. I mean, if we had had what she needed to survive her cancer, those stories are always going to be what informs us and impacts us and drives us to do what we do.
Well, and the stories, and we've talked about it a lot, stories are how we communicate best with our policymakers and anyone that really sits in a place of power and it's an influence. It's a critical piece to how we advocate for our patients, advocate for our own respective missions, and of course, in my case, the life sciences sector, and in your case, oncology patients. But so, again, I'm very sorry about your friend. That's terribly tragic. And certainly sympathies to her and her family. I can't imagine those babies. So let's pivot a bit and talk about Georgia's cancer landscape. What are some of the unique strengths and challenges you see here in Georgia when it comes to research, clinical trials, and access?
Sure, absolutely. Well, there's no other state that has an organization like Georgia Core. So we always think
that's a unique advantage.
Yes, it gives us a unique advantage. Again, it was started in 2003 just to really provide more clinical trials, but we've grown a lot since then. And we're in very many aspects of cancer. And so I think that helps to have a statewide nonprofit that's looking at the entire state. So that helps. But what I see so much, and what I hear from other states, is the level of collaboration between physicians and administrators and others at the healthcare centers, the cancer centers around our state, is really unprecedented. So many states come to us and say, how do you get somebody from Northside to sit down with someone from Emory, to sit down with someone from Augusta University? I'm like, we've been doing this for 22 years and they're happy to sit at the table together. So I think that collaboration is huge for Georgia and is something that really allows us to have the tough conversations, but take the business side out of it a little bit, and be able to help patients and figure out a way to do that.
No, that's great. Y'all are, and I'm going to throw in a question here. Y'all are coming up on 25 years in a couple of years. That's exciting. You're a statewide nonprofit, led by Governor Barnes at the time. I'm curious, how are y'all structured, like funded? Is it grants primarily? Is it state support, a mix of all these types of things, donors?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a mix. But when I first came 4.5 years ago, we were really heavily dependent on state funds.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be dependent on any one source of income. The state of Georgia has been incredible to us and still are. And I think I try to teach legislators all the time the impact we make, so they will continue to be that source of funding. However, federal government's actually surpassed state now in the last 4 years. We have 4 large federal grants, one on navigation, one on screening, one on clinical trials, one on really genetics testing for women with ovarian, with a mutation that could lead to breast or ovarian cancer. So those have kind of surpassed, but we also now, for the first time ever, Nancy Parrish, who you mentioned earlier, when I took the job.
Your predecessor.
My predecessor. When I took the job, she said, I never worked with industry. You need to. And I thought, oh, wow, okay.
I could see Nancy saying that.
Yes. And so really, we've been working more and more with industry to bring their clinical trials that they need help with to get to accrue patients to their trials. So we work with them on that. And then we also have events. They sponsor events.
Great.
So sponsorship funds have come in where they really weren't part of what we did before. We do get some individual and some corporate donations, but it's a pretty small amount. So we're continuing to work on that, though, because we know we need to diversify our funding to make sure we're stable.
That's great. I mean, running a nonprofit myself, that's always top of mind. How do we diversify, especially in an evolving, I don't know how to put it, ecosystem, economy, world over the last 6 years in particular. So it's critical. And I imagine being a convener, to your point earlier, and you mentioned your funder too. So is that where the federal funding dollars come in and you kind of neutrally convene and administer those dollars? So it's not necessarily at one place that might have issues working with another place?
Yes, absolutely. Perfect. Yes, absolutely. So we have partners, just for instance, on our colorectal cancer screening grant in Southwest and Southeast Georgia. We have 4 partners in those areas that help us do the screenings, get the screenings who need to be done, have them navigated to screening. So some of that money flows into us and then flows back out to those areas so they can do the work. We also, as a funder, there's 2 areas. One is Georgia license tags, and so we have 2 license flags, one for breast, one for all other cancers. And so we get $22 from the sale or renewal of every one of those tags, and then we fund nonprofits around the state so they can get patients, so women can go have mammograms and patients can have a colorectal cancer screening test. So we take those funds that are generated from those sales and we get them back out into the communities. And then lastly, one of our favorites actually is the Cancer Research Fund on your state income tax. There's a line there for Cancer Research Fund. You can put whatever dollar amount you want to. Those funds actually come to Georgia Core, and then we fund seed grants for our universities. And so when we have those researchers who are just starting their cancer research or have an idea but really need funding, we give $100,000 grant.
It's a substantial grant.
It's a substantial grant. We go through the RFP process. We have to really look at this and see if it has promise. But we love to fund young investigators and others. So
that's
we can
amazing.
And it has to be a collaborative grant. It has to be 2 or more institutions. So it can't just be someone from Georgia Tech. It has to be someone from Georgia Tech working with someone at Augusta or Emory or somewhere.
So I feel like I need to add you to our funding opportunities page for our early stage innovators. I had no idea. And I'll break the third wall here. Everyone, be sure to get one of those custom plates. They do end up in the hands of people that really create an impact. That's outstanding.
Yes,
but that's great. Thank you for sharing that. So you've been talking about extensively at the intersection of academia and policy and industry and government. What does a meaningful collaboration look like to you? And how is it helping Georgia accelerate progress in cancer care?
Yeah, I think really I do. Collaboration can be overused, I understand that, but it really does make a difference. When you have a physician talking to an administrator, talking to someone higher ed or a researcher. You have those people at the table. They are all seeing things from a different lens and different perspective. And for them to be able to come together and have a conversation and have an idea and take it and go. I think I worked at Georgia Tech for a very long time. Researchers are doing important work, but they're very isolated. They're not necessarily hearing the patient voice, seeing what the issues are. We do a certain type of cancer trial called cancer care delivery research, where it's not about the drug or anything like that. It's about how you get that patient through the process and how you improve the process for the patient. And that's big, trying to understand that. So that way we can have someone from the hospital there, someone from the university there, someone from other areas to see different aspects, and you come up with great ideas and different challenges that maybe you realize, but it usually produces really great work.
That's right. Yeah, convening is because we do the same thing. It's a critical piece of all of this.
Absolutely.
Someone's got to do it, and it's important that it's a neutral body, I think.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah.
And we've really developed our reputation on that. We don't want to ever be so closely affiliated with one med school or university or anyone else that they feel like they can influence what we're trying to do. We're bringing everyone. Brag on our board, but we have the executive director of the Winship Cancer Center, the executive director of Augusta's Georgia Cancer Center. We have people from Phoebe Putney. We have just all over.
Well, hopefully you'll start to also build a relationship with UGA's new medical university.
That's exciting.
Am
going to, Dr. Yana Zavros is the head of the research at that new med school. And I've already talked to her, and actually we did a little trade. She is going to be on my research committee, and I am going to be on her external advisory board. So
That's exciting.
Thrilled. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm thrilled.
All right, so let's talk about policy and advocacy.
Sure.
From your vantage point and your experience, how are shifts in federal and state policy related to healthcare access, research funding, and drug pricing affecting the cancer ecosystem here in Georgia?
I think the uncertainty surrounding all of it is debilitating, to be honest. I know just from my small nonprofit, we had to wait and see, are we getting these grants? Because used to be you'd have a grant and it was for 5 years and you could count on that money for 5 years. Now you honestly don't know day to day. Something could happen where it's suddenly cut off. And so I think that has hurt greatly. I think our med schools, and I know Emory is, for an example, their indirect rate is in danger. They've been doing all this incredible work, and then suddenly there's the threat of their indirect rate being cut. That doesn't allow them to do the research. You have to have the building and the facilities and the equipment and all the other things that go into that. So I think, the term chilling effect is accurate, though. I think everyone has paused and just trying to make sure they have what they need to continue. I think on hiring, that has been one of the biggest issues, is really they don't know if they can hire that extra clinical research nurse, or if they don't know if they can hire that navigator or whomever it may be.
And this isn't an industry that's dealing with talent issues outside of what's been happening the last 6 months.
Absolutely, 100%. We, especially in Georgia, Metro Atlanta, it's fine, but when you get to Columbus and Macon and Valdosta and Rome, it's really difficult to either recruit people into those areas or to grow the skills of the people who are living there locally to be able to do it. So those are
compounding factors, of course, the political climate at this point. Baby boomers retiring, just lack of awareness on, what to do to get into this career. There's so many aspects that are compounding this. And it's coming out of COVID. People retiring and pivoting careers. So it's really challenging, generally in healthcare. So I can imagine it's impacting clinical trials on top of the uncertainty and all that. So
it is 100%.
It's a tough time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you persevere.
Yes.
We do. And hopefully they'll, as we look ahead, there'll be some more stability as we move forward at the federal level.
There already is. I think
some,
we're seeing some, and so I think that helps. And yes, those clinical trials that were in danger, some of them the money has freed up, and so we're getting there.
You just have to survive during those challenging months or two.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely.
So going back to workforce, so we often hear that workforce is the number one challenge in life sciences and in healthcare. How is this playing out in the oncology research and care space? And what strategies are you seeing to build the next generation of talent?
Yeah. Well, we have actually over the summer, the House of Representatives here in Georgia established a Cancer Care Access Committee. And one of the issues they're looking for is oncology workforce.
Okay.
How can we look at the oncology workforce, not just the physicians, but really those nurses, those PAs, those navigators, those clinical research coordinators to do better. And so we started conversations with the Technical College System of Georgia to see what we can do to strengthen in that area. We've talked to AHEC and the way they put together, AHEC has these videos online that can look and introduce students to careers that they'd never even thought of. That, you know, maybe they thought, oh, oncology, what is that? Or, oh, I don't want to be a doctor, so never mind. Well, you could be a navigator and you could help people find resources for while they're going through the cancer journey. So we're really trying to work with other organizations, not just through us, to say, what can we do to establish apprenticeships or look at different avenues than the traditional ones that we've always found. We still do need the legislature to help us with some funds for loans. If somebody chooses to go to a rural area and practice, then, you know, to get their loans wiped out after a certain number of years of practice. We're seeing that as a possibility, but there's still more. There's some things the government can do, but there's a lot that others can do outside of the government. And we really have been looking at all of those and having the conversations that could make something happen.
I'll selfishly bring this up, we should talk a little bit about our workforce arm.
Yes.
Working with you and maybe going after some grants together. And we partner with TCSG significantly and done curriculum development. And we also just signed a national partnership with an organization called Apprenti that specializes in apprenticeships. And while we have traditionally focused in life sciences talent development, because the healthcare pathway and biotech pathway is intertwined with it, our equipment depot supplies the healthcare pathway at middle and high school levels. So
I would love to talk to you about
so
it.
there's a way we can do that, have that conversation. So selfishly, I bring that up because there is an overlap in our workforce. There are nurses in life science companies, and there's, of course, in healthcare, and then lab techs and all that, they overlap. So there's an opportunity there, I think, for us to continue the conversation around. Your leadership, it's been amazing the last few years to see what you've done, because you came in, I came in a year before COVID too. We've really had to lead in really unusual times. And what have been some of the most valuable lessons you've learned to navigate, whether it's from a policy or healthcare delivery perspective?
Yeah, I think for me, I walked into the role because I'd been on the board of Georgia Core, and I thought, all these legislators, all these people know what Georgia Core is. No, they didn't.
No,
they didn't. They got their line item in the budget, but that doesn't mean they know who we are or what we do. And so one of the biggest lessons to me is really talking about awareness, getting out of my office, from behind my computer, talking to people, interacting, but going to legislators, going to others. It doesn't have to be legislators. Going to hospitals. My colleague and I went to every single Commission on Cancer accredited hospital in the state. Took 2 years to do the tour around. There's 47.
No idea.
Yes. And so trying to go through all of them, meet the people on the ground, it's really important.
And I'm so sorry, what does that accreditation mean? What is that?
It's an accreditation that they have that it just designates them as being an accredited hospital. That they are accredited in cancer care. They have to meet certain standards, such as how many patients go on clinical trials, how many, do they have a survivorship care program, do they have all these different standards they have to meet to be able to do that. And so
I'm sorry, leadership. No, sorry.
That's okay. So really, to me, it's getting out of the car and going and talking to people. I learned at Georgia Tech. I worked for Bud Peterson, who was president of Georgia Tech, and one of his guiding principles at that time was that Georgia Tech was only known as an Atlanta university. It's a public school that serves the entire state. And so you had to get out and go. And so that's one of mine that, Georgia Core serves the entire state. It isn't just about Metro Atlanta. And I want to make sure that people in all areas of the state know who we are, the impact we have, and how we can help them. And so that's something that I think I have really learned. And it's taken a lot of the things I learned at Georgia Tech and I worked for a congressman for several years, other things to pull that together and say, it's really about those connections. It's about those networks. It's about making sure the relationships, building trusting relationships is hugely important. So they know I mean what I say. I'm going to help them when I can. And then, the cancer care community in Georgia, really bringing those people to the table. And when I go and I talk to legislators, I'm not just talking about Georgia Core. I'm talking about those 5 regional cancer coalitions, and I'm talking about the Cancer Control Consortium, and I'm talking about others and how we all work together to do what's best for Georgia.
No, it's great. It's really impressive, and it's impressive where you've been taking Georgia Core since you came in. It was, always an amazing organization under Nancy's leadership. But by diversifying the funding streams, providing more connectivity across the state, and of course elevating those those roundtables and other organizations is just really important, I think, for all of us and also for our industry. I learned today the funding aspect that you all provide, and I have one question on. So I didn't know there were this many hospitals that potentially could do trials. I think we get a lot of questions at our organization around what kind of, I would need to conduct a clinical trial, and they always have to ask about Emory. I don't think they think about all the others. And I think that's a place, especially because we do have a lot of oncology innovators here, that, I think it's helpful for me to also learn as I connect people to opportunities for trials. That's
absolutely.
Great.
And you can ask almost any patient. They want to stay close to home so their support system can help them. They don't want to come to Emory. If they're from Bainbridge, they don't want to drive up to Emory. I've heard too many stories of patients literally trying to get to the parking deck and becoming frustrated.
It's intimidating.
Saying, I'm out. I'm not doing this. And so we do need to find other ways, and having those connections with places around the state that are capable of doing clinical trials. Now, not all of those 47 are capable of doing clinical trials on their own, but they know the networks to get them done. And so we can get people inside Georgia to do those clinical trials and to work with those patients.
That's amazing. So looking ahead, what gives you hope about the future of oncology research and patient care in the state?
There's so much that gives me hope. I think the connections that I see happening, even though they've been around for 20-some years, I see them getting stronger and stronger. One of our programs we just launched was the Georgia Cancer Trial Finders program. And so there are physicians, there are patients, there are caregivers out there looking for clinical trials, and they don't know how to do that. And we realize that that's a hole that we can fill. And so we have a clinical trials navigator. So anyone can call her or email her or fill out one of our forms and say, this is the cancer tumor type. This is the, what we're trying to do. We want a phase 3 trial, whatever it may be.
And this doesn't exist elsewhere?
No, there's some, like the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society have their own. There's some that have their own, but there's none in a state that we can find where you could come to a central location and say, hey, I need a clinical trial in colorectal cancer research.
That's fascinating. I can see where that's modeled elsewhere too, or scaled by you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started it as a pilot study. So we're in year 3 of our pilot, of a 3-year pilot. And so
I feel
now
like that's
we're
not
looking
a pilot
for sustainability.
I feel like 3 years you're past the pilot.
We're past. We've done, and we've proven, we've had over 90 referrals, and we're finding patients clinical trials. So that's something wonderful. And then we are so excited that this year we received money from the state legislature to do a statewide colorectal cancer awareness campaign.
Oh, that's amazing.
We are targeting people 25 to 54 because early onset colorectal cancer is growing and growing. By 2030, colorectal cancer is going to be the leading cancer killer of people under 50, and they don't know the signs and symptoms.
So I think that's really important, and I have a personal reflection on that, but why is that? Do you think it's better diagnostics? I'm asking because I realize that's a loaded question, especially in social media world.
Yes, exactly. But what I don't know if it's diet. I don't know if it's pollution. I don't know exactly what it is. And that's why we need federal funds for research.
Fair enough.
So they can find what it is. But it's
and diagnostic tools have improved. Yes.
Absolutely. The Cologuard, the FIT test, you don't have to get a colonoscopy anymore unless you're at a high risk. So there are other ways to find it. And that's what we want to make sure people are aware of. But recognizing the symptoms, going back to your grant. Recognizing the symptoms. If they have blood in their stool, if they have stomach pain, ongoing stomach pain, if they've lost weight for no reason, if all these different things. So we've made a really fun campaign with Chemistry. It's a design studio here out of Atlanta. They've been amazing, and we're going to be putting weird looking stools, real stools, in bars and coffee shops around the state.
Oh, that's so fun.
With signage about what, this is a weird looking stool. If you have a weird looking stool, it may be colon cancer. So you need to go get it checked out.
That is so
and
fun.
So we're really excited. We launched September
That's
15th.
exciting.
You're invited to the launch party.
Hey, that's so fun. As long as I get to take a selfie with the stool.
You do, absolutely. So anyway, but yeah, we're really, I have a great staff, and people have come up with really creative ideas and ways to tackle some of the problems that have been here for a long time that maybe we just haven't been able to tackle before.
Yeah, so tell me the date again for the launch of this.
It is September 15th. We're going to launch in Atlanta, Athens, Macon, and Valdosta. And then what we hope to do is take the stools around the state and go to different areas of the state to showcase their works of art. There's an artist, Julian, who has made all these stools, and it's really going to be really interesting.
That's great. And where can they go to learn more?
They can go to our website, and we're getting ready to launch our website, georgiacancerinfo.org.
Okay.
And so we will be putting more out there as we continue, but we're hoping that people will say, hey, I have a coffee shop in Rome.
Yeah.
Come do this, and we'll have events at other places around the state.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Are there any other initiatives you want to mention about Georgia Core before we wrap up for today?
I think the Cancer Trial Finders, which is really important, and we want people to feel free to utilize that, and then this incredible awareness campaign.
That's outstanding. Well, thank you so much. I want to wrap things up on a more personal note. What drives you every day in this work, and what message would you like to leave with our listeners about the role Georgia plays in advancing cancer care?
Sure. Thank you for asking. What drives me are I told you about my friend Sarah. I told there's my own personal history. Cancer is unfortunately not letting up. We're not having less cancer. We're unfortunately probably in some areas having more. And we want to give people not only a longer life, but a quality of life, that they can have cancer and beat it and live a very high quality of life the rest of their lives. And so that's what drives me every day, is to make sure, especially those folks that I meet in Dublin, in Ringgold, in Bainbridge, in those small towns, know that we're there for them just as much as we're here for anyone else, and they have access to quality, innovative cancer care. And so that drives me every day. And then,
you're an example of that.
Yes, I am. I really am. And that's why I'm so free with my story, because I want people to see that I'm living a very normal life, and I expect to have a regular length of life because of all these wonderful medications and drugs that happen. And I do think Georgia is a different climate here for cancer care, and I think that there's so many people other than me who care so deeply about improving the system and getting people the help they need and screening and preventing cancer in the first place. So we're really trying to look at the entire continuum of care prior to diagnosis all the way through treatment, and see how we can improve people's experience and their lives.
That's outstanding. All right, last question. What's something people wouldn't know about you?
Oh, gosh.
Fun fact.
Fun fact about me? Oh, wow.
Any knitting hobbies, any fun volunteer positions?
I am a baker. I love to bake. I'm a stress baker, as my friend Sandy once told me. She's like, oh, boy, we know when you're stressed.
Are you a stress eater also, though? The question on the back end.
That is, yes, that's not helpful either. And I am. But my kitchen is being renovated right now, so I can't bake. So it's been probably a good thing for the waistline. But I am a big baker. I love to do that. And I'm an elder at my church, and so I love to spend time working with my church in our community ministries program, which helps people unhoused in Atlanta. So
that's great.
Those are things I do.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
And Georgia Core website one more time?
Yes, georgiacancerinfo.org.
Yeah, is Georgia written out or GA?
Is written out.
Okay, there we go. Well, thank you so much for joining today, Lynn.
Thank you for asking me. I appreciate it.
Of course, and thank you again for joining us and listening in to the Vitals podcast, produced by Cloudcast Media for Georgia Life Sciences. It's been another wonderful conversation, and I can't wait to have you back for the next one.